Hey guys, hi. Welcome to my review of the solo film, Solo, A Star Wars Story. If you have not seen the movie, I highly recommend you don't continue watching, because I'm going to kind of do like a walkthrough of the movie, and I'm going to kind of go over what I thought about everything. And yeah, so if you haven't seen it or you don't want spoilers, please leave right now. So we open up on Corellia, and Han is already he's part of a essentially like a teenager and or children smuggling ring for Lady Proxima, and they're stealing these resources, like medicine and all that stuff. But the main thing that they're after is coaxium, which is like this fuel, like really specific kind of combustible fuel for like star destroyers and stuff like that. So he gets caught on the streets in Corellia. We meet, he has a love interest, Kira, who's played by Emilia Clarke in the film. And they're kind of doing like the boyfriend-girlfriend thing, it seems. He gets caught by Lady Proxima's gang for trying to make away with some of the coaxium, I believe, because he wants to get off the planet, and he wants to buy a ship, and he wants to fly far, far away with Kira, his lady friend. So he gets caught. They bring him to her little nest area, and then she comes out of this water. She's like this giant slug thing. It's pretty cool. It's almost like a female Jabba. They're not the same species, so that's not really accurate, but it's kind of along those lines. This big slimy slug character, except it's a woman, and she has rings and chains and stuff all over her body. And then there's some witty banter that goes back and forth and all that. And then Han does a awesome bluff with a rock where you think it's a grenade. Really, it's just a rock though, and he throws it at one of the windows. Sun shoots in, and then she goes away. Whatever her species is, they go away. And then there's a street chase through the streets of Corellia, and it's really cool. I like that scene a lot. I feel like the score, this is a very tiny nitpicky thing, the score could have been louder to make the scene a little bit more intense, but it was a really cool scene. And then they end up at this essentially like a spaceport that's under control of the Empire, and they're trying to get away, and Han thinks that they can essentially trade in the coaxium for passage. That doesn't go down like that. She ends up getting apprehended by the Empire, I believe, and he makes off and is kind of emotionally scarred from the whole thing. Fast forward a little bit, he enlists in the Empire. He wants to become a pilot. They never show the scene, and I really wish they did. Just like a little minute or 2 minute scene of him in like a TIE fighter simulator type thing, and having like an instructor say, hey, bank left here, blah blah blah, and he's like, no, I know I can get this target if we stay on course or what have you, and then it doesn't happen, and then that's how they kick him out, something like that. Not that, that's kind of a lame one, but something akin to that. But he ends up joining the infantry, or he joins the Empire essentially, but they put him as a mud trooper is what they call him, and he's in battle. And then he sees a future partner, Tobias Beckett. So Han meets Tobias Beckett and his gang, which includes Val, played by Thandie Newton, and Rio Durant, who is voiced by Jon Favreau. He says, hey, let me join your crew, He realizes that they're there in the battle, but they're not part of the actual troops. So Tobias is like, nah, I don't need you. So he tries to. Tobias Beckett is being playing a captain essentially, but he's not. He's just a con. So they turn Han over to some troops, and then the troops throw him to the Beast. It was a really great introduction because the Beast leads us to Chewbacca. Chewbacca comes out and he's all covered in mud. Very, very Bigfoot-esque, and he gives a really loud roar at Han, and starts just unloading on him, beating him up. And then we come to find out Han obviously knows Shriwook, so he's able to understand Chewie a little bit, and they have a little conversation like, hey, no, we can get out of here. And then Alden Ehrenreich, the guy who does Solo, he gives his best performance of the entire movie, trying to do the Wookiee language of Shriwook. I'm kidding though, it's not that great. It's kind of sad, but whatever. It's still cool. And then they escape together, and then there's a part where Han wants to run one way, like, hey, Tobias Beckett is leaving the planet, this is go this way. Chewbacca has a mind of his own, and they're chained together, and then Chewie just drags him on for a while. It was a pretty funny scene. And then they get on the ship with Tobias Beckett, and then they're off to do a job together. Shortly after that, they have like a little fire thing together, where you realize, or you find out that Tobias Beckett and Val are an item, and you also find out Rio is funny. Rio Durant's like this, I want to say he is like a chimpanzee mixed with an alien with 4 arms. This is the best way I could describe him. I'll have to look up. There's a lot of stuff I gotta look up later. I gotta look up what his species is. But yeah, they have a little moment around a fire pit, which is nice. And then they're off to the job. They're gonna steal some coaxium off of this train, and that whole sequence is awesome. I thought it was great. There's these troopers that I need to look up their name. You guys don't don't get on me for not knowing the exact terminology just yet. I'll know it soon. There's these troopers that they have like these gravitational boots, because there's parts where the train goes left and right and up and sideways, and they have these gravitational boots that stick to the train. So they're in the midst of doing the train job, and then Enfys Nest shows up, who, if you remember from the trailer, is the one with the really, really cool mask. Her and the Cloud Riders show up, and they're essentially marauders. They go to, essentially take the loot from the work that's already been done. And there's a really cool score that plays during their introduction. So I think some people, from some of the reviews I read, didn't necessarily care for it. I thought it was really cool though. I thought it was a really cool score. It was different for a Star Wars movie, but I still thought it fit into the Star Wars universe, which was cool. And then the job goes awry, and then we end up, Enfys Nest and the Cloud Riders don't get the coaxium. Tobias Beckett and Han Solo don't get it. It ends up exploding on the side of the mountain and destroying the mountain, which is kind of cool. And then enter this guy named Dryden Voss, who's played by Paul Bettany. He is essentially like the crime lord, the main baddie in this movie, I guess you could say. He shows up in this really cool yacht. It's black and gold, and it's very thin. It's like a traveling hotel, essentially. It's pretty cool looking. I missed one thing. So I know how I said the thing goes awry, the whole train thing. So it goes really awry because Rio ends up getting shot in the shoulder by a stormtrooper, and Val ends up taking out the whole end part of the train tracks that they're on, and ends up killing herself in the process. So it goes really awry. So Tobias Beckett does some grieving, and then they're off to join Dryden Voss on his yacht, and that's where we meet Qi'ra. It's been 3 years later since Han has left Qi'ra on Corellia. And then they meet in their little lobby area, their little meetup area, and they have a moment. And then she's like, you have no idea what I've been through the past 3 years. And he's like, whoa, I was coming to get you, all that stuff. And then we realized Tobias Beckett was working for Dryden Voss. And Dryden Voss is part of the Crimson Dawn crime syndicate. And also Qi'ra also has like a little tattoo on her wrist there, which is like a Crimson Dawn tattoo. Alright, so I don't exactly like how Dryden Voss was written, but I do like the way that Paul Bettany plays him, because in one moment he's like, "Oh man, how are you? I'm so sorry about all the stuff that you had to go through." And then in a second he changes his tune, is like, "You have my stuff, right? Because I have to kill you if you don't have my stuff." It's really beautifully played by Paul Bettany, I think. His writing is a little meh, but I think Paul Bettany did the best with what he could. Alright, so he essentially says, "You gotta go do some work for me now. I need something to give my boss," wink wink, we don't know who the boss is yet at this point in the movie. And then we are off to Tobias Beckett and Han come up with a plan to go steal some coaxium that's raw, untamed in the spice mines of Kessel. So we could go see that. But first they need a ship. Wait, quick little thing though, with Dryden Voss's office. I'm sure there's a lot of cool Easter egg things. One of the main things that I was really excited about was there was a holocron on one of his little museum display things. So I wonder what that holocron was to. Might come up in a future movie. Who knows? Okay, and now we are off to go get a ship because Tobias Beckett is given Dryden Voss his plan along with Han Solo, but they need a ship. So then you go find a ship from somewhere. So they're off to go. Kira knows of someone who turns out to be Lando Calrissian. So they go meet him, and Han plays him in a game of Sabacc, which is a really nice scene. The set design and whatever planet they're on is amazing. The set design pretty much in the entire movie is amazing, but specifically on whatever planet that is, I'll have to look it up later. So they meet up with Han, and they happen upon the... Han doesn't win the Falcon in that specific game of Sabacc, but they end up meeting Lando on that, and then Lando agrees to go with them for 25% of the cut. And we also meet L337, Lando's droid counterpart, who's really big into equal rights for droids and all that, which is kind of funny throughout the scene. Because they happen to be also in a place where there's a droid fight club, which is really funny. Yeah, droid fight club. That should be its own little, I don't know, Star Wars episode for Rebels or Resistance or whatever's coming up next. P.S. I know that Rebels is now over. Also, while they're playing Sabacc, the cards look really cool, and I really want to learn how to play. It's pretty much, it looks like a cross between just poker and blackjack, but with some really weird symbols on cards and stuff, so I gotta look into that. So Lando takes them to the Falcon, and it has these parking locks on it, which is pretty hilarious, and L337 helps them get them off. And then we are on board the Falcon, and it's really clean and really nice, and Han, you could tell, instantly falls in love with it, and that's pretty cool. On their way to the spice mines of Kessel, Han and Kira have a scene together where she's trying on some of Lando's capes, which are pretty funny. And they have a moment and they kiss, and she tries to explain to him you don't understand, I've changed a lot in the past 3 years. And again, we don't really know what's going on there, but she just can't fully commit to getting back together with Han just yet. So the crew ends up on the spice mines of Kessel, and they try to infiltrate the system by pretending to be I think Kira does this long diatribe where she says she's the regional vice local governor of some local area, and she wants to trade Chewbacca and Han for some spice. And then Han and Chewie are able to infiltrate deep into the mines and get some of the coaxium that's deep in the core of the planet. And then in the midst of all that, L337, as a diversion, creates essentially a droid revolution on the planet, and frees a whole bunch of droids. And then there's also Chewbacca, who he sees Wookiees also there being worked to death, and he goes to set them free. So there's this whole mini little rebellion. Rebellion, yeah, I see what I did there. There's this whole little mini rebellion that happens, and it's pretty cool, and it's really actiony and really set driven, and it's really cool. I know I keep saying it's really funny and really cool a lot. Just go with it. That's right. Okay, so they're trying to make an escape out of there. All those rebellions going on, and in the midst of all that, L337 dies. She gets cut, like essentially blown in half, and Lando is really sad about the entire thing. And he tries to get her out of there, and then he gets shot in the shoulder. And then Han goes in after Lando, and then Lando gets stuck there because he can't carry both Lando and L337. So Chewbacca comes in there and saves the day, as he always does. And then they finally get on the Falcon and get out of there. So on their escape out of the Spice Mines of Kessel, Han, it's his first time flying the Falcon because Lando is injured. And Qi'ra gets in there to be his co-pilot, but only for a moment, because after a moment, Han realizes Chewbacca is the one who knows how to get all the systems running where they need to be and all that. So eventually Chewbacca gets to sit in the co-pilot chair, and that scene is awesome because it's the first time you're seeing Han and Chewbacca together flying the Falcon. It's just a really cool scene for like fans of the the original series. It's a really cool little thing. And then they make their run in less than 12 parsecs. Yeah, and it's really cool scene. I think if they ever make a Star Wars horror movie, they need to look at and dissect. There's like a little 15-second, 20-second part of that run where it gets dark and the red lights come on in the Falcon, the alarm lights, and they don't know what's going on, and then you just see a huge, gigantic monster start chasing them, and it's awesome. It's not like scary, but I think it's the appropriate tone for a Star Wars horror movie. Just that little scene. And so essentially they're trying to get away from this giant monster. It's huge. I can't even describe the size of it. It's like a Cthulhu type monster. It's pretty cool. And there's also a gravitational field that they're trying to escape out of. So Lando, I forget which character, one of them has the idea, let's put some of the coaxium in the fuel of the Falcon, and then what that'll do is set off a reaction and just shoot the Falcon out of there. They eventually do that, and it's just really cool because you get to see the Falcon just punch it faster than you've ever seen it in any previous Star Wars movie, which was a really cool scene. They end up, I forget the planet, but they end up on like this Mad Max planet, which is pretty cool. It's like all dirt and dunes, and it's by the sea. It's really cool looking, I think. It's a really cool planet. Dun dun dun! Enfys Nest shows up. And then they have their little showdown, their little thing, which you think is going to be all fireworks. And then it turns out Enfys Nest takes off her helmet. Spoiler. I said her for the first time. Oh well. She takes off her helmet, and it's revealed to be like this 17-year-old girl who's the leader of this little gang. So back on the Mad Max planet, they get their coaxium refined, and then they're waiting around for Dryden Voss to meet him in his space yacht hotel. And but they have a plan because Enfys Nest shows up, and she's like, "Hey, here's what's going down. Both the Empire and these bigger crime rings, they're leaving nothing for like the common people, and that's who we're fighting for. We're trying to start a rebellion. So if you work with us, that would be awesome." And so Han and Tobias talk it over, and you'll kind of see what happens at the end, which I'll go over right now. So they make a plan. They're gonna go. Han goes with a case of the coaxium to the resource to meet up with Dryden Voss along with Qi'ra. And again, Paul Bettany is awesome as that character because he's like, "Oh, I heard Tobias Beckett didn't make it," and then he's like, "Yeah, he didn't," and he's like, "Oh, my condolences." But little does Han know, he's waiting right behind the door number 1, and he comes out, and then he's like, "Why are you trying to cross me?" essentially. And there's this whole switch around of like, but I'm gonna go on his side. No, but I'm gonna switch sides right now and go on his side. It's kind of convoluted and it's easy to explain, but it's like, okay, so Tobias is he's gonna look out for himself, or he's not gonna look out for himself, and essentially it leads to a headway where Han, Kira, and Dryden all end up in a showdown. It's essentially Kira and Han versus him. Kira ends up taking Dryden Voss out, and then Tobias makes out with the actual resource, the coaxium, and he makes off with it with Chewbacca in tow. He makes Chewbacca walk with it while he has a gun on him and all that. After Kira kills Dryden, he has this ring that they have, and it's the ring essentially of the Crimson Dawn crime syndicate. She takes it and she plugs it into like his desk, and a hologram comes up, and it's so cool. Spoilers. Wait, I already said that at the beginning of the video. Whatever. Darth Maul shows up. Darth Maul, played by Ray Park, which was awesome. It's just a hologram. It's not him in real life. He has his robotic legs. Is voiced by Sam Witwer, and it's just an awesome little scene. I think it's great because he's one of the most underutilized character in the live action movies. I mean, he had a good run on Clone Wars, he had a good run on Rebels. We know where it's heading in Rebels, but we get to see him back in live action. I hope we get to see him again in another movie, whatever entity that is. We'll see, we'll find out. But yeah, it was just a really cool little spot. He essentially, I think, is the head of that crime syndicate. There's a bigger one that I thought he was the head of Black Sun, but I guess not. He's the head of Crimson Dawn, at least in this timeline that we're in right now. We're the 10 years before the Battle of Yavin, or 7 years before the Battle of Yavin. I'm not sure specifically where we're at on that. And then, yeah, it's just really cool. So he leaves with a line with Kira that says, we'll be working a lot closer together going forward. And then he ignites his dual red lightsaber. It's great. Alright, and back on the beach of the Mad Max Island, Han catches up to Tobias and is like, hey, we're gonna give that coaxium over to Enfys Nest. And he's a survivor. That's the whole theme that comes up throughout this entire movie. Han's a survivor, Kira's a survivor, Tobias Beckett is a survivor. Everyone's a survivor. Everyone's out for themselves in this movie, for the most part, except for Chewie. Chewie's just a loyal Wookiee, and that's why we love him. So they have like a little duel there on the beach, and wouldn't you know it, Han shoots first. And it's great. Han takes out Tobias Beckett, and you could see though at the tail end of that scene, he's sorry for him because he kind of viewed him as a father figure, and he just essentially murdered him. So you could see like a little bit of conflict within Han start to brew. But they essentially end up leaving the coaxium with Enfys Nest and the Cloud Riders, and she kind of gives like a wink towards the audience where they're gonna go form some sort of rebellion, whatever entity we'll see that take. I'm not, it's just, they allude to a lot of things, they don't give specifics, which is fine. I'm cool with illusion for the most part in most things. And then before the movie ends, we end up back on this jungle planet where Lando is having another game of Sabacc. I forgot to mention this earlier in the review. The way that Han wins the first Sabacc game is he has this little thing that shoots out of his wrist that gives him essentially, I'm assuming, like an ace type card up his sleeve, and that's how he ends up winning the first game. Han notices that and realizes that, so in the second game he goes to hug him, Initially he thinks he wants to like punch him, but they essentially end up laughing together over everything. And as Han hugs him, he gets the card, and they play their game of sabacc for the Falcon. Han puts all of his chips in, and Lando puts the Falcon up for the game, and Han has the card that Lando thought he had up his sleeve. And then the final shot, you see Chewie and Han getting in the Falcon, lighting up all the switches, and going at light speed. And then you see the dice from all the other movies dangling, and it's really cool. And then directed by Ron Howard. Yeah, so that's the movie. Overall, I thought it was a really good movie. I thought it was really entertaining and really fun. I love the cinematography. I love the production design. The writing in some parts was a little shaky. Shaky's not the right word. It was a little vanilla. That's the best way I could describe it. It's very vanilla. But yeah, the score was good. Acting was pretty good. I was, hats off to Alden, because he could have messed it up in so many ways, but the way that he played Han was really good. So hats off to him. And I'm a really big fan of this. I'm gonna butcher his name, Jonas Swatamano. Ah, gosh, yeah, the dude that is essentially the in-body guy for Chewbacca now. Hats off to him as well. He conveys more in his body language than we give him credit for. So yeah, hats off to him as well. And Donald Glover, are you kidding me? Yeah, Donald Glover couldn't have picked a better Lando. So yeah, that's overall. It's a fun movie. It's definitely not the best Star Wars movie, but I don't think any of us were expecting that. But it's just a really fun one. I'll have to do, because I think we have. We have 10 as of right now in May of 2018. We have 10 live-action Star Wars movies. So maybe at some point I will make a top 10, or I'll do a ranking of my 10 live-action Star Wars movies before Episode 9 comes out. Anyway, so yeah, that's the overall review. If you guys have any comments, make sure to leave them below. And then please like, please share, please subscribe. I am on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, all under Blue Milk Latte. So I for the most part, I do humor and Star Wars stuff through there, but I think I'm gonna get more into like the review stuff and other fun stuff through there. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Have a good day. May the Force. Oh, why am I saying have a good day? No one says have a good day in the Star Wars universe. It's may the Force be with you.